What you're looking at here is the PAL version of the Sega Saturn. In fact, it's my Sega Saturn. A console I never knew even existed until a couple of years ago. Since then I've seen it crop up over and over on my YouTube feeds, and I've researched it along with the games to see if it is really worth investing money or time into. I've even watched many videos to understand its impact in the world, the legacy it's left behind, and why it sadly failed in the West. Sure enough, since buying this device in February 2019, I now have over 18 games for it, and yes, I'm a good haggler for retro games. I like cheap stuff, normally. With over 10 games in my collection now, I've decided to look at 10 of them in this very video. As a proud owner of a console which didn't do so well in the West, is this system worth it? Are the games worthwhile, or is it a bit of a fash? Maybe I should have stuck with my PlayStation system instead of going for this? It's time to put those questions to bed. So, welcome to another episode of Affro's Curiosities, and this time we're playing 10 of my Sega Saturn games.
Sega Rally Championship.
Let's kick off with an arcade classic, Sega Rally Championship. This game was in the arcades first in 1994 and was a smash hit there. Now, on the Saturn, this game also proved to be a smash hit and sold over 1 million copies on the Saturn. Let's see why this game did so well. Sega Rally Championship is a rally arcade game. You pick either the arcade mode for some quick fire fun, or you can choose the championship mode where you have to finish first to succeed. I didn't do that, but oh well, you can't win them all, right? What I really like about this game is it does not take itself seriously at all. You jump in, you hit maximum speed, and your control of the game will determine how far you will get. You can choose from two cars, the Toyota Corolla or the Lancia Integrail or Integrail. I always choose the Toyota because I'm boring. I love the course designs here. Always full of tight and easy turns, hairpin turns, the always lovable co-driver, and your opponent which will pounce on you when you misjudge a turn or two.
Medium left. Wow. Medium right.
The car sounds pretty good, but for me, the music is what sells the game. It's full of rock pumping tunes and never fails to make you more determined to succeed.
Long medium right. Head pump.
Once you finish a race, there's a replay mode so you can see how well you did or didn't do in the race again. And there's more cool music to listen to as well. It just sucks a bit that there's no sound effects, but it works well enough to be watchable. When it comes to arcade games, Sega knew how to make them work on the Saturn. So far, this is the best racing game on the system that I own. I forgot to mention that for an early Saturn game, the graphics are pretty good. Good detail in the cars and tracks, there's nice little touches from time to time, and the draw distance is decent, although not amazing. But the windows are the most bizarre to me. God, it looks a bit weird, doesn't it? It doesn't look like any window graphics I've seen before, but it's a minor gripe as the game looks great overall. But considering that Windows need transparencies, this could be a sign of things to come since the Sega Saturn is not known for doing transparencies too well. But in the end, it's just pure, simple arcade fun, and it even exceeded my expectations when it comes to personality. I mean, it makes it more special than your average simulation game did back in the day. I say this game is worth having if you own a Sega Saturn.
Medium right. Medium right. Medium left. Long medium right. Medium right. TT Superbike.
Speaking of arcade games, here's another one, Manx TT Superbike. As it says in the title, instead of cars, you'll be using motorbikes. Sounds great, right? Just like Sega Rally, Manx TT was an arcade game, and it was also successful. It sold out everywhere. When it was finally ported to the Saturn in the late 90s, many people were not sure if it would be any good. Thankfully for Sega, the game turned into a huge success story and had a good critical reaction at the time. However, I fail to see why the game is good because personally, I don't like it. To start, you can pick the arcade mode or the Saturn mode. There's a bit more in the Saturn mode, but the arcade mode is just a quick jump in and play type mode. There's only 2 tracks to choose from. No, actually 1.5, as the second track has elements of the first track. To me, that spells laziness, and laziness doesn't make for a good first impression in my eyes. Anyway, once you pick the track, off you go to race. As standard, you start in the first person view, and usually I love those in racing games, especially considering that this game was an arcade game first. But here, I felt sick trying to play it in this way. The swaying motion was too fast, too steep and far too excessive. I ended up feeling dizzy and had to take a 5-minute break before resuming play. Even then, the handling isn't great either. It's far too sensitive and you end up zigzagging from side to side. Somehow the computer artificial intelligence handles the turns fine, but me? No! Look at this! I look like a drink driver compared to the other racers, and other than 1 or 2 turns at best, don't bother using the brakes unless you want to lose the race. If you get close to your opponent, you can slipstream them for more speed. However, it is hard to stay in their slipstream due to the controls. Even when you nail it, if you hit them, you lose all the speed you just gained.
Passing the checkpoint.
And the music. Only one song seems to play most of the time, and at best, it's average. Not the worst soundtrack I've ever heard, but it's very stock sounding, and since it's so short as well, you'll hear it multiple times per race. It gets old fast.
Passing the checkpoint.
The only other song I heard was this one when I got to round 2 of the Saturn mode.
Passing the checkpoint.
It's even shorter and worse than the first song. Oh, and the game is not easy either. I got second place a few times, but sadly I never won a race, and trust me, I did try. Sadly for me, this game is an awful value product, as it feels very bare bones, and to me at least, using a controller, the game isn't much fun. If you like this game, more power to you, but for me, I think I'll play something else.
Passing the checkpoint.
How about we change gears and let's look at something different now. Here is Resident Evil for the Sega Saturn. I already own the PlayStation version of this game, but I just had to own the Saturn version too. It's a great game, and thankfully the Saturn port keeps what we all loved about the PlayStation version. Resident Evil is a survival horror game. As part of the STARS Alpha Team unit, you control one of 2 characters, Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine. I always pick Jill as she's way easier and has the best side character, of all time.
What? What is this?
What is it?
Blood.
Anyhow, once the intro cutscene is done, and yes, it's iconic for a reason, we start in the mansion after escaping the packs of dogs outside. After some amazing voice acting,
Captain Wesker, where's Chris?
Stop it! Don't open that door!
Chris is our old partner, you know.
we get let loose to find out what really happened to our teammates and why this strange mansion has all these zombies and stuff like that. Resident Evil popularised survival horror, and this game really holds up despite its age. You have to be mindful of how much ammo you have at one time, and how you attempt to approach enemies can really be the difference between life and death. As you explore the mansion, you'll have to solve puzzles in order to open up more of the mansion and to further investigate what happened to your Bravo teammates, as well as finding out where Chris is and Captain Wesker.
Wesker!
The slow pace, lack of ammo, and unknown dangers add to the fantastic atmosphere, and as you start to go back and forth in different rooms, you open up new routes, new shortcuts, and ways to backtrack quickly to different rooms. It's done all so well, and although backtracking can be a chore, there's more than enough here to keep you both invested in the story and the game. Resident Evil might be 23 years old recording this video, but there's still a reason why people champion it today, and all these elements are the reasons why. Of course, then there's the creepy music that also gets to you as well. The themes are appropriately creepy and add to the tension of zombie killing and exploring the unknown. Even when the music is peaceful, it still has a creepy vibe about it. It only serves to remind you why nowhere is safe in this mansion. Oh yeah, and I also cannot forget the amazing voice acting. Honestly, it will leave you in tears.
Jill! Don't scare me. But just take a look at this.
Right, seriously, who translated this? Someone who didn't speak English too well. Everyone speaks as if there's something wrong with them, and the dialogue is both awkward and painful to listen to. The actors certainly made no attempt to sound convincing either, as if they saw the script and how bad it was and decided to take the piss out of it. If it was me in the same situation, I'd do it too.
Is that you, Jill?
No, Barry, it's your dad. Who do you think it is?
What do you think of it?
The graphics are pretty good in this version of Resident Evil. I will say, however, compared to what I remember with the PlayStation version, the Saturn port seems to be running in a lower resolution, and some of the textures and effects look very different to the PlayStation version. Not in a bad way, but it was just something I noticed. The pre-rendered backgrounds look as good as ever, maybe even slightly more detailed, but nothing that'll blow your mind or anything. I will say, the loading screens take quite a long time however. Each door seemed to take forever to go through, and that did kill the pace of the game quite a bit for me. Mind you, the camera angles are much snappier than I remember. In the end, Resident Evil for the Saturn is a fine port and definitely is recommended from me. I'm aware there's new things in this version, such as the battle mode and other changes, but at the moment I never got that far, at least in this review. Someday I'll unlock everything, and that will be a proud moment for me. Let's cover Die Hard Trilogy. If you know the Die Hard movie franchise, then this would have been a dream come true, as it really is a decent attempt to capture what makes the three movies so memorable and so good. In Die Hard Trilogy, you play as John McClane in 3 different game types. In Die Hard, the first movie, it's a third-person shooter. You attempt to rescue hostages, kill the terrorists, and at the end of each level, defuse a bomb before the whole building goes up in smoke. In Die Hard 2, Die Harder, it's a light gun game and my favourite of the 3 games. You go through Dulles Airport trying to save citizens from harm while trying to stop another terrorist attack and saving those trapped on the planes above the airport. Funny how the second movie, which is the weakest of the 3 for me, actually got the best game mode. The last movie, Die Hard 3, or the full title, Die Hard with a Vengeance, is a driving game where you have to stop bombs from going off in various places in New York City by crashing into them, which I'm sure in bomb school is how not to defuse bombs, but I guess I do not know any better. So that's the 3 game modes, and they all have decent lengths to them. They aren't super long by any means, and on their own the games aren't that strong, but in this package it does well to use the Die Hard license to maximum effect. I mean, John McClane and the enemies do curse, somewhat.
Yippee-ki-yay! Betrayal. 9! Ah! Take this, yeah! 9! Ah! Kill him! Ah! This guy's got everything! Go, go, go! Hang on!
The violence is off the wall. Look, people can turn into skeletons. Nice. I also like the banter as the game goes on. It reminds you why we all love the character, John McClane, even if the voice acting is pretty poor and barely sounds like the characters from the film.
Yeah! Eat this! Hold tight, this is gonna get bumpy! Nice move, Motorhead! Someone give me some aspirin.
The first game, Die Hard, is quite fun and you have to take it slow. If you get ganged upon, you will lose a ton of health before you know it. The controls are not the best either. Moving in anything but a straight line is tough and frustrating when you keep getting shot. Going through doors is a pain too, hard to go through, hard to get out of, and really waste your time. Not handy when the bomb is primed and ready to go. The frame rate at times really struggles and the slowdown is quite bad if too much is going on the screen at once, but this was just good, trashy fun, and the music really adds to that action experience. It's nothing like the movies, but it doesn't matter. It kicks lots of ass, and it makes playing the game way more fun. Without it, I would have stopped playing a bit sooner.
Betrayal. Don't let him get away. Happy trail.
The second game, Die Hard 2, is a lot of fun and to me the most memorable part of the package. The light gun portion is so much fun. Everything can be blown up or damaged, and when you start the level to when you see it end, you can see how much destruction can be caused in the airport. It really boggles the mind how much can be blown up or destroyed. That being said, compared to the PS1 version that I also owned, the graphics are worse, the water sprinklers won't activate, and the windows don't look right. Obviously, the Saturn hardware here is nowhere near as developer friendly as the PlayStation, and the effects must have been lessened as a result. The slowdown here is pretty brutal at times too, going down to a single frame. This can affect the controls, and you will end up getting shot for your troubles. Despite these flaws, Die Hard 2 is still a fun romp on the Saturn, and even though I do prefer the PS1 version, there's enough here to still make this a worthwhile look.
That's McClane! Ah!
Die Hard 3 is a driving game and well, I didn't like this one much. First off, the controls are just awful. I'm new to the Saturn controller, and as a result I kept pressing the handbrake instead of the brakes, and the driving 90-degree turns of the handbrake really suck. You end up missing your turns or unable to turn around. Reversing doesn't seem to exist either, which really didn't help. To add to this awfulness, the boostability is great in a straight line. But too often you end up going past your target because the compass you use to navigate to the bombs is slow, making you think you are further away than you really are. Not a good start, but I finally did get the hang of the controls. Again though, the graphics are rough, the sound effects are quite annoying in this game, and the slowdown makes everything look choppy. Also, look at this, the trees do nothing when you go through them. If trees do nothing, why bother putting them there in the first place? And god damn it, really? Why make me drive across the park if the water makes you sink?
They got a bomb?
Yeah, and good luck trying to hit these bastards in the park with the poor handling and the bad turbo boosting, which only makes you look foolish using it. I know I've been negative, and it's only because this should have been way more fun, but it's just too frustrating to warrant any more playtime from me. The third game, at least on the Saturn, isn't worth much of a play. Overall though, Hard Trilogy is still one of the best Die Hard games ever, and if you can find it cheap, like I did, it is worth owning. Alright, now we're talking. It's Daytona USA Circuit Championship Edition. I'll call it Daytona for short. In this arcade game, yes, another one, you drive NASCARs around the track against both the opponents and the time limit. Simple, but a lot of good fun. When you first start the game, the personality shines through. Rocking music, bright bold menus, and very Japanese sound effects. What's not to love? I wish more games were like this, in your face and not annoying. Well, so there's 5 cars and 5 tracks. I mainly choose the band's car thanks to its top speed and grip. It may not be the ultimate car, but I think this is what I strive for. All speed and grip yet no acceleration. Gosh, this makes it sound like I love laggy turbochargers. Not true, but let's hit the track, boy! Sorry. When you start, the music kicks you in the balls. It's cheesy, yet full of energy. I love this 90s sounding stuff. Way better than what we mainly hear in games today. I miss these days. Why is music worse today? Stupid advanced technology nonsense. Back to Daytona. Since you're driving NASCARs, the handling can be quite loose, and if you go too fast, you'll bump into the wall, hit it or your opponent's too hard, and you'll damage your car. Make sure to use those brakes when you can. This game is criticised for a poor handling model, and to be honest, I thought the handling was fine. It's not perfect, mind you. I did feel the car breaking traction a bit too often at times on the more challenging courses, and yes, sometimes the cars can suddenly Tokyo drift out of nowhere, but on the whole, I thought the handling was pleasant, and provided you don't charge in at top speed at every corner, this won't happen too often. I will say, the time is your main enemy. Mess about too much or start making too many mistakes and you will lose the race. It sucks because just when you think you might win, nope! The time can be brutal, and you get less time extension boosts as you do more laps. Also, good luck winning. It really will not be easy, but seeing that this is an arcade game, I expected nothing less. The graphics look great in this game, great detail on the cars and tracks, The in-car-ish cam looks believable enough, and the sense of speed is really nice here. Feels like I'm actually going really fast. I also love how the frame rate is super stable even with so many racing cars on screen at once. Just like Sega Rally Championship before it, this is easily one of the best looking early Saturn racing games yet. The sound is nice too. I like the low rumble sounds from the cars and that great music though. Despite what people say, this updated version of Daytona USA is worth owning, and yes, I think it's a great game overall. Now then, let's have a look at Quake for the Sega Saturn, or as I like to call it, Saturn Quake. Quake was made by id Software, you know, the guys behind Doom. I've always loved the Quake series, and I own Quake 2 for both the PC and PS1. However, this is the first Quake, and the Saturn port was definitely an interesting experience. Oh, and for the record, the people who ported this to this platform was none other than Lobotomy. In Saturn Quake, when you start in this strange place. I decided to learn the controls. While I learnt the controls, I made a huge discovery. That's right, the best jumping sound effects ever! I will never get tired of that. See, even a nameless guy like the Quake guy has a bit of personality, all by just jumping. After that giggle, you choose your difficulty and then one of 4 episodes or sections. With how many levels there are per section, this game is probably long. Good! Value for money is always appreciated. So in Saturn Quake, the levels are not quite big, but they have secrets, power-ups, and of course, different weapons. When the game starts up, you get some armor and some more ammo for your trusty shotgun. You then go down a lift and BAM! Enemy in sight! These strange bastards can shoot from far away and cause some great damage. Good thing you can do the same as well. Oh, and these dogs. They teleport from nowhere and start chewing on you. Leave me alone! They jump all over the place, making it hard to shoot them down. Honestly, I prefer my dogs to be nice to me. Thankfully, the controls are easy to grasp, and because this game doesn't require you to aim up and down, the shots will usually adjust automatically to anyone you shoot at. It can get annoying on slopes as the gun won't hit most of the time, and you have to take a step back, which isn't ideal considering how much health you lose. Even with armor, you can be killed in quick time. If you do die, you have to restart the level from the beginning. So yes, the game doesn't hold your hand. Now, in Saturn Quake, you can get new guns to aid you in killing whatever this thing is and whatever that thing is too, and also that thing there. It's all pure fun and satisfying as hell. Get the pun? In level 2, these big things throw grenades at you, and your pathetic single barrel shotgun is practically useless. Thank God I found the double barrel shotgun for maximum power. And also, I have the nail gun. I love the sound it makes. The problem is, for it to make sense, you have to be right up your enemy's face. That can be risky if there's more than one at a time. In fact, groups of enemies in this game is almost like a death sentence. Good thing strafing is here and isn't hard to do either. Standing still and shooting makes you an easy target. In Saturn Quake, it will make mincemeat out of you should you try that past level 2. In the end though, Saturn Quake is awesome. Lots of fun, great weapons, good level design, and a very creepy sounding soundtrack that will keep you coming back for more. It's not the best looking game or anything, but what it offers in return more than makes up for it. If you can, get Saturn Quake, it is so worth it. Alright, now it's time to look at Wipeout. This series has been very instrumental in my childhood days, and even today the games still prove why they are so good. However, I'm referring to the games made for the PlayStation platform. I've never owned or played the Sega Saturn version of the original Wipeout. Until now. Since I already own the PlayStation version, let's see if the Saturn version is still worthwhile. The game begins with an FMV intro. It probably looked amazing in 1995, but in 2019 it's lost some of the charm. It's not bad or anything, but the FMV just doesn't look as good as it perhaps could be. I can also tell that the Saturn FMV is lower in quality than the PlayStation one, as they had to compress it to fit it on the disc. Thankfully, when we get to the main menu, things start looking up. There isn't a whole lot here other than a championship mode, a time trial mode and a single race mode. Sadly, there's no 2-player mode, which stinks, as that would have been nice. I start with the championship mode with the slower class of ships and boom, into the game. As it loads, you get some information on the racetrack you'll be attempting to win on. Now the game truly begins. Either the frame rate or the scrolling is a bit jarring here. It looks like it's skipping somewhat, and it's quite distracting at first. The PlayStation version didn't do this. That or the frame rate is at 20 or something. Very odd. Amazingly, the controls are very responsive and feel just right. I don't remember liking the PlayStation version's controls much, so this is a much needed improvement. Graphically, the game looks alright. It does not look as good as the PS1 version, and the transparencies are handled poorly here. It's a shame, as the Saturn, albeit with difficulty, could have looked as good, if not better, than the PS1 version. I still do like the track designs, which challenge you to control your speed, lift or lower your nose depending on the slope, and make you wary of when and where to brake. When you first play, you probably won't get too far, as the learning curve is somewhat steep. However, once you start to get competent at the game, you'll get first place in quick time. Wipeout also features weapons and power-ups. On the track, you have these blue speed boosts, and then coloured tiles which give you power-ups. There's a decent amount of them, such as missiles, rockets, turbo boosts, shields and more. Knowing when to use them will help you conquer the racetrack. Be careful though, mistiming the use of them may result in you flying off the track, as I did many times, and it is slow to get back into the race. Mainly the turbo boost caused this, but sometimes hitting a wall before a jump or getting hit by a missile also caused the same issue. This is especially troublesome in the championship mode, as you can only finish in first place in every race. Yep, second place or lower means you have to restart the race again. Like I said before, make sure you learn the game before you jump in. Amazingly, I did win the championship and then access to faster ships. Oh yeah, these ships are very hard to handle. Good luck winning with these on anything but an easy track. Most are narrow and hard to navigate with a slow ship alone. The last point I want to bring up is the soundtrack. It's what will keep you playing the game. It's fantastic. Cold Storage does most of the music, and man is he the master. Every song is long, has great build up, fits the game perfectly with its frustrating atmosphere, and just sounds damn good. Every track stands out and only serves to remind you why music is so important in video games, especially when they are this good. I wish Cold Storage did more Wipeout music. He is kick-ass when it comes to electronic music, and Wipeout demonstrates this in spades. Also, the Saturn port has 3 exclusive tracks that aren't on the PlayStation or PC versions, and they are good as well, although the Cold Storage music is still the best. Wipeout for the Saturn is interesting. It's not the best racing game and the design has aged the game, but for the music and still decent racing experience offered here, I say Wipeout is still worth a look if you can find it cheap, like I did. I'm sure most of you are wondering what is the best-selling Sega Saturn game, and the answer is Virtua Fighter 2. This arcade sequel to the first game made it to the Saturn in 1995. It's a 3D fighting game, and this one is real good. I don't really have a lot to say as I've only played a small portion of what it offers, but I'm impressed. There's 10 fighters to choose from, and I mainly use Jackie and Sarah Bryant. They are both similar, although Sarah definitely likes to kick more than punch, which is fine by me. Virtua Fighter 2 first off has some great arcade music during the fights. It sounds appropriate and adds to the experience of battering the crap out of your opponents. The gameplay though is what really impresses me most. There's lots of different moves to pull off here. The box claims there's thousands of moves to pull off, but perhaps that's stretching it a little bit. There is a lot though, and for 1995 standards, that's impressive. The controls are good too, smooth and fast, and that's the sign of a fighting game with its big boy trousers on. The animations are some of the best I've seen for a 32-bit system. Really fluid in every action, and each time I always thought, damn, how did Sega's AM2 division manage to pull this all off? Really wicked. You'd think this would corrupt or delay the controls, right? No, not a chance. This is witchcraft, I tell you. You can also be forced out of the ring in certain fights, so be mindful of where you are when fighting. I wish my character would move from side to side when standing up to avoid this, but you can't have everything, I guess. This game rocks though. Mind you, the difficulty isn't so kind as you progress. The game really starts to throw you around after stage 3 and it can be frustrating. My only advice? Keep learning the game and eventually you'll overcome whoever stands in your way. Lastly, the graphics are just incredible. The fast frame rates, the textures look amazing, and it's running all in 480p, or 480i, as it's interlaced. Not many Saturn games did this, and the fact that this game looks so good really shows how powerful the Saturn is when it's used properly. I wished more games looked as good as Virtua Fighter 2. Maybe the Saturn would have stood a chance. The good news though? Virtua Fighter 2 is what I would call a standout title. I really look forward to getting back into it again, and yes, I highly recommend this for your Saturn.
Vipers.
Now then, the people who bought you Virtua Fighter 2 have this. This is Fighting Vipers. Where do I start? You can take most of what I said about Virtua Fighter 2 and apply it here. That being said, there are some interesting differences here. First off, we have new characters to pick from. Mainly, I used Cindy, as I thought she had really cool kicks. I liked her design the most too. Yes, I'm a kicking type of guy, what can you do? Like Virtua Fighter 2, Fighting Vipers is a 3D fighting game. This time, however, the arenas are enclosed. No ring outs here, just a fight to the death or until time runs out. Another difference is that the characters have armour on them. As time goes on, the armour pieces will start to get damaged, and if you get a well placed blow on your opponent, the armour piece will shatter in an epic replay. I love when this happens, it makes you want to do that more often. When you do manage to do that, your opponent will be weaker in whichever part you took the armour away from. Now, this isn't always easy to pull off, but when you do, you'll feel like a winner. Also, if you time it just right, you can blast your foes through the arena walls. Or even have them hanging off the top of the wall. Ooh, that's gonna hurt, I think. I forgot to mention the music. It's great. Once again, it's peppy sounding with nice melodies which add to the fighting action. I do like this soundtrack more than Virtua Fighter 2, and it's more distinctive too. Overall, if you like Virtua Fighter 2, you will like Fighting Vipers. This one is also a bit easier to manage too, and I like the armour idea. Makes you want to protect yourself more, and it forces you to not be as aggressive since the AI is good at making you suffer for trying such a tactic. Still, Fighting Vipers is definitely a must-own game for the Saturn. Time to look at our final game for today. This is Duke Nukem 3D. This popular PC title made it to both the Saturn and the PlayStation. Of course, this is the Saturn port. I'm aware the PS1 port is more faithful to the PC original, but that doesn't mean the Saturn port isn't any good. Thankfully, the Saturn port is an awesome game. Can you guess who developed this port? Yes, our good friends at Lobotomy. They did a great job with Saturn Quake, and once again, they pulled it off here. Duke Nukem 3D starts by letting you choose your difficulty.
Let's rock.
Then you're plopped into the first level. Duke is mad because the no-gooders shot down his ride.
Those alien bastards are gonna pay for shooting up my ride.
Like Saturn Quake, I had to learn the controls and... what's going on? Is Duke humping a cardboard box? Moving on, the controls are mapped out in a similar way to Quake's, and that means it's easy to use, and again, you do not need to aim up or down. The levels are a little open-ended, as you can go wherever you want, but you'll need keycards and other items to access locked doors or gates. So yes, expect quite a bit of searching to commence. It's fine by me, as the game is just kick-ass fun. Shooting guns in this game is very satisfying and they sound awesome. Lots of punch and lots of fun for sure. I also like the enemies you fight too. They all look punchable. Or shootable maybe. Regardless, you won't feel bad as you put them in their places. These alien and pig looking things will definitely give you a run for your money though, as trying to end their lives isn't always easy. Thankfully, other than your guns, you do also have access to other items to help you out. There's a portable medkit which heals you on the fly, or steroids which turn Duke into an ultra powerful 80s action star. Oh, and like Quake before it, there are many secret places to find more goodies and new weapons. I must say, the soundtrack rocks. It manages to elevate the action and make it all the more epic, and it just hits home that Duke is a badass action man. Graphically, I think it's superior to Quake as well. Everything has more detail than Quake, and it runs at a slightly smoother frame rate as well. It's not perfect, but considering what we've seen already, this is a top performer. Long live Lobotomy. I never got far, as I kept running out of ammo, and I was stuck in level 2. As I said before, Duke Nukem 3D isn't a walk in the park. It will punish you every chance it gets. That being said, I like this game a lot, and I will not give up my quest to become the ultimate action hero. Do I recommend this game? Yes! This is a must-own game for the Saturn. There we are folks, 10 Sega Saturn games and most of them are very good. Now admittedly some of these games I already own on the PS1 and those games didn't do as well as expected. The games in question were still worthwhile, but certainly showed why the Saturn proved to be a challenge for game developers and programmers compared to the PlayStation. However, when the Saturn gets it right, it absolutely dominates, mainly in those arcade games and of course 2D games. Sadly, all the games I played today were 3D games and not 2D games. Maybe in the future that will be something I need to look into. For my sake though, there's just something about the Saturn which makes it so appealing to me. Maybe it's the fact that it's rare or the history about it is so fascinating yet heartbreaking for Sega and its fans. Either way, I say the Saturn is worth owning, but make sure you buy games for it which will show off what it can do. Also, be prepared to put up with lesser ports since the Saturn has many of those kinds of games. Plus, it's hard to get cheap Saturn games, but if you can stand all that, then the console is certainly worth considering owning. I don't regret it, and I actually love this device now that I've gotten some good games for it. And now I've got a question for you guys. What do you think of the Saturn? Do you think it's worth owning? And for those who actually owned it when it was a new console, did you enjoy it? And what were some of your favourite memories of it? Also, let me know what some of your favourite games for it were as well. Let me know, and until next time, I will see you in my next video.